Are you ready, kids? Get your parents' permission, check your mailbox, and grab your shopping cart. It's time for the Adventures in Collecting podcast.
I'm Eric.
And I'm Dave. Welcome to Adventures in Collecting, where we talk toy news, culture, and hauls,
along with our journeys as collectors.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Adventures in Collecting.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
We are back. Yeah, we're recording bright and early. Usually we're a bunch of night owls over here recording at night, but we're recording while the sun is still out, which is always a nice little change of pace for us, Dave.
Yeah, and you could be listening to this in the morning too, so it has many, actually two implications.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if we've ever actually discussed what time we're normally recording, but so good morning to you, early AM listeners. Dave, we're back with another guest.
We are.
So, Super Impulse is known for making the world's smallest toys and providing a fun unboxing experience in both their micro toy box and wacky packages toy lines. And whether you're playing with the world's smallest Rubik's Cube, a G.I. Joe, or He-Man figure, this week's guest is responsible for bringing them to life. Joining us on Adventures in Collecting is Alan Dorfman, founder and president of Super Impulse. Alan, welcome to Adventures in Collecting.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
So before we kind of jump into the interview itself, we always ask all of our guests, as this is a show about toys and collecting. What are you currently collecting?
At this point in my career, dust mostly. So there's two answers. One is a shameless self-promotion. We do a line which we've been doing now for we're going into our third year. We call microfigs, which are miniature size action figures. So I've been basically collecting my own product and displaying them on our monitor, and it's run to 40 or 50 pieces now that completely surround my desktop. So that's kind of the newest collection. But my hobby, for many years I've been doing this, is collecting mechanical tin toys. So antique toys, generally made between the late 1800s and the early 1900s, mostly European made, that all have wind-up functions. Really cool stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, a few years ago, I was in Colonial Williamsburg, Virginia, and they have a really great like folk art museum there, and they had a traveling exhibition that was like the history of toys. And I had no idea that it was there, when I was visiting. We just so happened to be in the museum, and it was serendipity. But looking at all of those old wind-up tin toys, were like that was the best part of that exhibit. It was just, it's fantastic.
To tell you the truth, a similar experience. I was running through late for a flight, the airport in San Francisco, and they had a museum display that was in the airport in glass cases in the center of the hallways, and it stopped me cold. I mean, I couldn't stop looking at them. So that's where my fascination started.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's so cool to see how well too so many of them have kind of like held up, with like the colors and the paint, and and even honestly like the mechanical function itself. The fact that they still work is kind of fascinating.
I'll tell you the truth. Stuff that was made over 100 years ago, and I'm in the industry, and there's mechanisms we still marvel at, and we can't figure out really how they came up with them.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the most amazing thing, is just kind of like how they made things that we take for granted work. Because at some point that idea was brand new. So, and the fact that they still hold up for the most part is unbelievable.
Well, every once in a while, because they're mechanical, I'll hear, in the middle of the night, something is now, getting a little bit of that wind that's starting to run on its own. So, they all carry stories, and they're probably a little bit haunted. So they will come to life every once in a while on their own, which is enough to keep you up at night.
And very seasonally appropriate too.
Yeah, of course.
So you started Super Impulse back in 2015. Tell us a little bit about your journey to starting your own toy company.
Okay. Well, I've been in the toy industry for much longer than Super Impulse. Um, we actually started in 2014. It was in 2015 when we launched the world's smallest, which became the core of the company and the product line we're best known for. Prior to Super Impulse, for 20 plus years, I was the owner of another toy company which I founded, which is called Basic Fun. Basic Fun is still alive and kicking and based in Florida. It was at Basic Fun that we came up with the concept of miniaturizing toys and putting keychains on them. And to this day, whenever you see people having keychains hanging from their backpack, that kind of gets credited towards Basic Fun's keychain business. Um, I sold the company, hung around for a couple of years to help the transition, and then I was done and really planning to kick around and see what came my way, and didn't really have a specific plan to go back in the toy business. Um, I was fortunate that I was busy and the phone rang and the emails came in and gave me a number of projects. One of those projects was a product line called Super Impulse. And that product line was a floor display for retailers that had a video monitor built into it. And the video monitor would play a loop demonstrating the toy. So it was designed for Impulse Toys, which I have always been involved with. And it was basically an in-store merchandiser. So I agreed to take on the project of bringing that program to the United States, and eventually they became expanded to bringing the program to a worldwide basis, worldwide distribution. And eventually it gained traction, and it demanded all of my time. And we decided, we being my two partners, one based in South America, who brought us the program, and one based in Hong Kong, who runs our Hong Kong office, to put our resources into managing the Super Impulse business. And as I mentioned earlier, after about a year, we realized that the miniature toy business was going away. The guys who had bought Basic Fun decided to pivot and change directions, and were no longer doing the keychain business with miniature toys that we built the company on. So there was low hanging fruit, and it was a great opportunity. And we just went ahead and started acquiring licenses and deals with other toy manufacturers, and a great product line was born.
So, Super Impulse and like you said, Basic Fun initially is known for making these kind of smaller toys, and now with Super Impulse, especially laying claim to the world's smallest toys, going back to the little Super Soaker. What kind of built this fascination and direction to take a toy line into the world of like making the world's smallest things?
That's a good question. Personally, I was always drawn to, I guess, into impulse toys, which seems to be by nature usually small toys, things that you carry around with your pocket. Um, Silly putty, super balls. A lot of this stuff they're classics now, but when they were first released, they were trend items. They were fads. Um, I was doing a product at Basic Fun that was kind of an open market item, but it was a little squirt gun that at that time women particularly, were wearing around their necks, and they were squirting each other in bars. It just became a little mini fad, lasted a few months. But I'd worked for a period at Laramie, who was doing the Super Soaker, and I was down there for some reason visiting, And I was explaining what I was doing. They were showing me what they were working on, and it just became a a light bulb moment. Well, why don't we miniaturize a super soaker?
Hmm.
And they looked and said, "Nah, we don't need to do that. Yeah, that's not our thing. Super soakers are big. Super soakers have lots of capacity of squirting ability, and no one wants a small one." And I kept at them, and took about a year to convince them. And finally, they said, "Okay, we'll give you a crack. See what you can do." And in order to differentiate it, they didn't want the product showing up in the water gun aisle. They didn't want to draw any sales from them. So I suggested I put a keychain on it and keep it, as in the miscellaneous toys or the impulse toy section. And they agreed, and it was an instant hit. It was the appeal of the miniature, of something people are used to seeing big, giant, oversized, and all of a sudden here is the same product but pocket sized. And when you picked it up and pumped the little the nozzle, and a stream of water squirted out, it was a wow. It was a big deal. People just flipped out over it. And now it's concerned, it took off, and I'm thinking, okay, now what? There's no end to one hit wonders in the toy industry. So what next? And I started looking around. I mean, I literally went to Toys R Us and started looking up and down the aisles. What can I miniaturize, and what can I get the rights to miniaturize? And that second one happened to be Etch a Sketch. I landed on Etch a Sketch, another longtime favorite. Bought it, took it home, took a hacksaw to it, took it apart, and said, "Yeah, I can make this." And that one worked, and it became snowballing. Okay, well, next one, the next one, and we went from 2 items to 4 items to 12 items, and just snowballed it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to think about it, right? Because we've you've said it several times now, like just kind of impulse toys as a category, uh, a category of toys. And all of a sudden now I'm thinking like, oh yeah, thinking when I was a kid, whether it was like the capsule machines, where you pop in a couple quarters and you get a super, like a sky bounce ball, or some sort of little little figurine, in one of those capsules. And I feel like this is kind of like the natural progression of of that, where it's instead of being kind of a Genera brand toy, in that kind of impulse category, now it's kind of the things that you either as adults grew up with, or as a kid maybe this is your first introduction into an Etch a Sketch, is one that's super tiny.
Think about it. Think about your favorite, I'll quote unquote, forgotten toy. Think about when you're cleaning out your desk, getting ready to go away to school, and you find something that in the back of the drawer that you couldn't put down, or you took everywhere with you when you were a kid and haven't seen it in years, and all of a sudden it's just laying there, in the back of the drawer, or hanging off a backpack that was stuck in the closet, or something that's been sitting in the kitchen junk drawer that you pluck out and all of a sudden start playing with. And these type of toys are the ones that are really, really the favorites, are really the ones that touch you emotionally, that bring back the memories. That's, I think, the core to the success of our product, is that we cross over demographics. We're not a kid's toy line. We're not a collectible line. We're people. It's pure impulse. People see it, they remember it, they have to have it, and something that it becomes a keepsake.
Yeah, for sure. And part of the fun to it is the nomenclature of it being the world's smallest. So, how do you go about determining how small something needs to be in order for it to be the world's smallest?
So we have kind of two levels of um, review that we go through. If if it was a product that we created as a keychain back at the first company, then we were automatically challenged to be it ourselves, saying, "Okay, we already made it small. It has to be the world's smallest." So we have an objective of at least 10% smaller. The other point that we try to meet, if whether we did it or it's a brand new item, is we kind of start from the engineering perspective and say, okay, how small can this really be and still function? So we want to deliver the experience of the toy that people would expect it to. So if it's a magic 8 ball, it has to be a workable, functional magic 8 ball that you turn over and it gives you a different answer every time. And we have to go kind of through the engineering perspective of how small does it have to be um, to have that function to really work reliably and be able to actually be built. That's the other challenge is we're mass producing these. We have to have a production method that allows them to be worked. You can make one small of anything, but it might cost you an exorbitant amount of money in order to build it.
Yeah, that was one of the things that was so we had the opportunity to take a look at kind of a sampling of the product line, and I had seen the Etch a Sketch before actually at Toy Fair a few years ago. The amazing Etch Man was actually doing little portraits on the Super Impulse Etch a Sketch. So I had seen that in person and knew that it had functioned. But I think I was most impressed by the little lava lamp because I wasn't expecting it to have a pump on the bottom to like actually like move the little like oil mixture around in there to make it look like it was actually a lava lamp. Like I was expecting it to be something where I just kind of like turned it over and like the beads would fall out or like like drift through. But yeah, the fact that it had like a little functioning pump on the bottom, I was like, oh, this is really clever.
Right. So that one was that was one of our challenges. So the nature of a lava lamp, a full size lava lamp, is that you plug it in and the electricity activates a heating element and that melts the wax and causes it to float and drop through the liquid. We knew that we weren't going to pass any type of safety testing if we had a heating element and a pocket-sized product. So,
You don't
so
say.
we had abandoned that feature and go. We came up with the pumping mechanism, which gives us a pretty good likeness.
Yeah, I agree. It absolutely
Absolutely.
does. So speaking of we've talked about the lava lamp and the Etch a Sketch and Super Soaker and there's even a Rubik's cube. Due to the nature of your product, you have the opportunity to really work with some of the most famous toy brands and kind of licenses in the industry. How do you go about choosing like which one comes next?
We're constantly challenged. Fortunately, we have very good relationships within the toy industry with other toy manufacturers, and for the bigger companies, Hasbro's and Mattel's and Spin Masters, we essentially have developed relationships with the licensing teams, and it's almost like going through a roster. We look at what we have, we look what they have, we look at past products as well as what's current, and we just try to land on brands that are trending, that are meaningful, that are classic, um, and pursue those. And of course, we have to consider the mechanics that can we make this work, and can we deliver a product in small size that will meet the standard. Um, the other thing is we're constantly looking. We're looking at what's out there. We're looking at we're searching our own memories of what we remember. I mean, there's no shortage of toys in the history of toys, but sometimes we'll sit on some that are too obscure or too you know basically they're too forgotten about to be successful on bringing them back. Um, but for the most part, we look for well-known brands and well-known toys that fit just kind of fit the mix.
And now, a word from our sponsors. And now, back to the show.
Now you mentioned when you're kind of going through these these kind of catalogs mentally, right? These long histories of toys from these brands. Do you ever try to go after something that's maybe like you said, maybe like a forgotten toy? Like I'm thinking like uh battle beasts or rock lords or street sharks, like some of these toys that have kind of never really left the like collector consciousness, but they haven't been on the shelves in decades.
It happens all the time, and we really have to make a decision of how's it going to be viewed by our customer base. So when I present our product line to a retail buyer, um, they're going to go for products that really are going to give them the best success off shelf. Um, and in many ways, we compete with ourselves. So if I have a more obscure title, it's just not going to get the support at retail than some of the higher profile brands. It's a shame because we leave a lot of really interesting stuff on the table that way. But from a practical point of view, a business point of view, we just can't make everything. So we do have to make a cut. I'll give you an example of something that's on the cusp, but that has worked out pretty well for us. We do a couple of different types of Gumby. And current awareness with kids from Gumby, it's kind of niche. There's a lot of kids who don't know what or who Gumby is or was. A lot of us grew up with it, and it's a classic, and it does pretty well for us. Usually, when we mix it into other assortments, as a standalone, it's a niche product. Usually, in toy stores or collectible stores, but it's not something that some of the bigger retailers would pick up. We're really proud to have that brand within our mix, but it's a pretty specific type of product. We have watched unboxings on YouTube and online, and a kid will pick it up and open it up and say, "Oh, it's a little wire green man." No idea what it is.
Oh man, my heart.
Or I've had one kid say, "I bet my dad knows who this is."
Well, it's a good thing you didn't include the blockheads. They would have been really confused.
They've been they sit here and they may make it one of these days.
But yeah, I even see things like and I think this is the most amazing part, especially with the world's smallest action figures. Like, not only is it replicating the packaging, but there's articulation. There's Battle Cat, like He-Man can actually go on the Battle Cat. Like it's amazing, kind of the level of detail and just the level of nostalgia where it's like, yeah, I can do the thing that I did with my action figure decades ago with the world's smallest figure.
That's a great line. We have a lot of fun with that, and that does give us the capability of stretching the assortments beyond what we would do maybe in the typical world's smallest line. The microfigs have given us some really good opportunities. So even like we do we call it Micro Mego. We work with Mego on their relaunch of their action line. We've been focused mostly on horror so far. And that gives us a good retro, opportunity for stuff that isn't so mainstream.
Yeah, I couldn't believe I popped open one of the micro toy box blind packages, and there was a little He-Man in there, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I'm looking at it, and I'm like, wait, does he come with a sword and the sword and the shield? And can he actually? And then I'm like sitting there, and I'm like, oh my god, he can actually the shield clips onto his arm, the sword goes in his hand. This is crazy.
Yeah, it's tooling that stuff and molding that stuff is really challenging. It's really, I mean, look at how small the hands have to be in order to grip the sword.
Yeah, and the fact that it actually again, like I'm sitting there kind of incredulous, like, okay, like, yeah, I'll be able to get the sword in his hand. And then when I did, and like I'm sitting there shaking him back and forth, and the contact is actually so good that the sword's not falling out of his hand and the shield's not falling off of his arm. I was very surprised.
I'd warn you not to shake too hard because that sword flies out. You'll never find it in a carpet.
Yeah, and I have a high pile carpet in the office, so yeah, it would be gone forever.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So speaking of, Eric mentioned the blind box. One of the trends that has been extremely popular over the past few years has been crafting a blind box and mystery unboxing experience for collectors. How do you determine which products are going to be in the blind boxes?
So we started. The first blind box, and it does really well, is actually a world's smallest blind box. So we've been selling all these individual items, these individual brands by themselves. And one of our customers, a large customer who wasn't yet a customer, somebody we've been pursuing, said, I don't really have the space and it doesn't really fit our merchandising scheme. Why don't you give me an assortment and put them in some kind of display? And we realized that blind box would be the best way to execute that. So we put together the world's smallest blind box in a counter display or a shelf display. And it continues to be our top seller. And it's proven to be not only a great seller in its own right, but it also introduces a broader base of consumers to the category world's smallest. That they buy the blind box. If they're looking for the magic 8-ball, they're not finding it. They can always go back into the aisles and pick it up. But so it opened our eyes to the opportunities in the blind box area. And the next one we did was wacky packages. Now that was something that we went to Topps to get a license to do miniature wacky packages, which were the old trading cards, been around for about 50 years, that were done as collectible stickers / trading cards. And so we wanted to build them into 3D, and it made sense to do them as blind box. And so you open the package, and there's 5 different wacky package minis inside that package. And that led us to, we're already doing the world's smallest as a working line. We saw there was a trend in miniature collectibles and grocery items and other household type items. Let's do what we do best and make miniature toys. So this year we've launched the micro toy box, which are non-functioning but collectible mini toys. Again, multiples within a package. And that's a fun business. We really like it, but it is challenging. You have people. No offense to your audience, but collectors are very passionate about that. And we went through a learning curve finding how to properly do a blind box product to satisfy the collector community.
Yeah, I mean, in a world where like information travels in the blink of an eye, it's. I was just having this conversation with somebody the other day, like hearkening back and remembering a time where you'd walk into a toy store, way pre-internet, and you'd see a toy on the shelf that you didn't know existed. Like you had no idea it was coming, and you were excited to be like the one to find it on the pegs, right? And then go back and tell your friends, look what I found. And I feel like and Dave and I have talked about this in the past too. This kind of blind box, blind bag experience, especially for collectors, like people who have, our age and even older, it gives you just kind of like a taste of that feeling and that experience that like you really can no longer have because of, the internet and, and marketing plans and leak culture and, and all that stuff. So it's so interesting to see how brands kind of adopt the blind bag, blind box experience.
The other thing that I really like about blind box is that it's a multiple style merchandiser. So you can put it gives us the opportunity to make a lot of product and put it into one assortment. So there's a challenge there, but at the same time, it's a lot of fun. So we will get of our collections. We'll have to get dozens and dozens to make it work as a blind box. And as a developer, that's the fun part. That's the part that we enjoy. We enjoy the variety of brands. We enjoy having to mix and match them and put them in the proper assortments. Our head of development, Daniel, has to create a matrix of how to pack these things, and that's kind of one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is it's challenging, but it's pretty cool to have to figure out, okay, we're going to put, this product with that product, and these ones we're going to make scarce, and this is what we're going to do to make them rare or collectible. So it's a whole new kind of level of product development.
Yeah, because that's always the other fun thing to consider, right? Is the what are the determining factors that make something qualify as the thing that's going to be the rare or the chase, in the assortment.
I'll have to ask Daniel that question. He tells me. I mean, we do agree on, and it's usually his suggestion whether we're going to do a gold plated one or a chrome plated one, or mold it in a clear plastic, or make a black series. But he's the guy that actually picks the specific styles of what's going to end up as as the ultra scarce one, or the rarest.
So one of the things that we haven't really touched on yet, and I feel like has become, at least I'm assuming, an unintended side effect of the of the Super Impulse products, is kind of like toys for toys. So as toy photographers have started using them to enhance photos, to give their toys toy displays, or even like deck out their dioramas, just using them as props. Um, do you ever take any of that into consideration when producing these new items?
So, yeah, I can tell you that I'm a genius, and we saw that coming, and we thought this was something we should play into. But the truth is, we had no idea. We were so impressed and so thrilled to see that trend come up. It was like, wow! Now, why didn't we think of that? It's completely organic. People, creative people started seeing the opportunity, and the action figures for your action figures to us just kind of blew us away, and that really reinforced the legitimacy of the product line to us. We have to do more of this. Love it.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I thought of when after I opened up a few of the packages, and I had a dozen or so, effectively 1/12 scale little figures, was like, I'm gonna put Deadpool on the floor, and he's gonna be laying on his belly with his legs crossed behind him, and he's gonna be playing with He-Man and Hello Kitty, because of course he is. And like, I took the picture and then started set up the little 112 couch and the table, and started putting everything around, and put the lava lamp on a side table, and I was like, this is something else. Like, if there were other kind of like general household objects in here, like a phone, like even if it was like a rotary phone, or like a uh like a solo cup, just kind of like other fun little household items, like I think that would be like a super cool spin-off
We
almost.
do a couple of things that do fit into that category. We have a world's smallest turntable. Doesn't actually play music, but it looks like a pretty cool turntable, and it does come with a record, and it does spin, and a little strobe light goes on. We also do um, Polaroid camera,
Oh,
which has actually
awesome.
been pretty popular. Yeah, so doesn't take pictures, but does eject a piece of film and makes that cool little electronic whirling noise as the film pops out.
I got to keep my eye out for that one.
So as a result of that trend, kind of related, we are launching a brand new product, which will be both as a standalone and as an accessory in a combo pack with the micro figures. And this was purely inspired by a photographer's use of the products as a prop. We were looking at social media, and we saw that someone had taken an image of that set up He-Man playing with a micro He-Man, and they used as a backdrop a He-Man comic book. And we looked at it, and we showed it to Mattel, and they looked at it, and it was another aha moment. And for spring of 22, we are launching a line of micro comic books, full reproductions of original comic books that are about an inch and a half tall, 2 inches tall. We've gotten rights to the original artwork, and they will be offered along with He-Man, Transformers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and GI Joe.
Oh, that's so cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I have to say this one really got us going. This one is really cool.
Now my action figures can have book collections. I like this.
That's right.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
can't
that's
wait.
really cool.
I can't wait for Optimus Prime to be reading a Transformers comic book. I'm already the gears are already turning, Alan. They're turning.
So that is a exclusive to you guys. That is a brand new launch, and you're the first to break that news publicly.
Awesome. Yeah, that's
Awesome.
great.
Thank you.
So now that brings us into our Q&A. This segment is brought to you by our friends at Chubsy Wubsy Toys. A traditional mom and pop toy store in Little Falls, New Jersey, Chubsy Wubsy Toys brings you the best new toys from the brands you love without the hassle of pounding the pavement searching for them at larger retail stores. Visit them in person at 106 Main Street in Little Falls, New Jersey, or online at chubsywubsy.com. That's CHUBZYWUBZZY.com. And tell them Adventures in Collecting sent you. So we posted, an announcement that we were going to have you on the podcast, and we collected some questions from our followers. And
My family members.
yeah. Well, you can confirm two of them because two of them we have handles for. So if you recognize them, you can put them on blast. But then the other one is a combination. We got a couple of questions that were very similar, so we just kind of turned it into one. Can't give a single person credit for it. But Dave, do you want to hit Alan with the first question?
I sure can. At Nico Minoru 1986 asks, I'm excited about what's in store for next year. Are you making more keychains, more blind boxes, maybe blind box keychains?
Yes and yes. So let me explain the keychain aspect. I probably sold more keychains in my career, particularly toy keychains, going back to the basic fun days, than anybody in the world. And when we started World's Smallest, the first mantra was no keychains. We've had enough of keychains. We're tired of keychains. And then, of course, a year later, say, well, this one would be pretty cool with a keychain. So when we do a product that we cannot replicate the exact function, we have to modify it for practical reasons or size reasons, like the lava lamp or the Polaroid, which doesn't really take pictures, but it does have a cool function. That we title not World's Smallest, but World's Coolest. It's the same scale, same type of packaging, same price point, same presentation. But in order to designate or differentiate rather a World's Coolest from World's Smallest, all the World's Coolest have keychains. And that's kind of a signal to consumers that this one works. It just doesn't work exactly like the full size. So for next year, we have in blind box, which is not necessarily a keychain, but we're doing a blind box range based on candy brands, which is called Sugar Buzz, and it's coming in really nice. It's a lot of fun to work on. And in the keychain space, we have 2 or 3 miniature items that we will be launching. It's a little bit early for me to talk about them now, but yes, there will be more coming.
Cool. So this question is that combination question. So a bunch of people wanted to know, what was the toughest license to secure for the World's Smallest line?
Well, the toughest ones are the ones I haven't gotten yet. So there's a couple that we've been chasing that haven't yet come our way. Probably Dungeons and Dragons.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hasbro is very and Wizards of the Coast are very protective of the brand, as they should be. And they really hadn't licensed anybody to do figure roll pieces. So the fact that and by the way, they kind of came to us eventually and said, we're really happy with the work you're doing, and we'd like to give you an opportunity. That was something that had been off the table for quite a while.
That's cool. Yeah, and that talk about a world of like endless catalog of characters and designs and colors, shapes, sizes. I mean, it's nearly endless?
The first product is actually going to be hitting shelves in a few weeks, and I'll tell you the truth, that was one of the tougher ones we had to do in small scale. That fan base is very loyal, and we were challenged to make sure we came up with a product that would meet their standards.
All right, the next one is from friend of the pod at CreepyNJ. The Wacky Packages line has some cool video game inspired boxes. Any chance we'll see micro consoles / game carts in the future?
We reproduce what's been done. So if they've been created as wacky package stickers by Tops or cards, then it's certainly on our roster.
Now, I'm going to actually piggyback on his question here because it just made me think of something. Have you ever thought about going into doing micro, like actual video game consoles, like a little NES or a little Sega Genesis or N64 with like removable carts and stuff?
You guys got to get up to date. We do a line called Tiny Arcade, which is a line of miniature replicas of arcade video games. We have a lot of the classics, so it's a 1 3/4 by an 1.5 inch screen. Pac-Man, Ms. Pac-Man, Space Invaders, Tetris. We do a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. We do a mashup of Hello Kitty, Pac-Man. So these are all full play, full function. We program these games to be exact replicas of the original arcade games. The Pac-Man has 254 levels. High definition screens, high resolution screens, high definition imaging, authentic sound. So that we've been doing for a couple years. We're a little challenged now because there's a worldwide chip shortage, which I know you're aware of. So that's slowed us down a little bit. But so we took all of our resources essentially and put them into 2 new items this year, since we knew we would have a supply chain shortage. We put all of the components into the 2 new ones, which is a miniature Dance Dance Revolution, which you dance with your fingertips.
Very cool.
And we do the Atari 2600 console game. So
Nice.
it is a true reproduction of a miniature console, the 1978 version of Atari. It has a TV. It's an old box style TV that your parents had in their living room, your grandparents had in their living room. It has a working joystick, which is a controller, and it has the console. There are 10 games pre-programmed into it, complete gameplay. 9 of the 10 are Atari games, and the 10th is Pac-Man. And what's really cool about Pac-Man is that when we did the Tiny Arcade, the self-standing video arcade one, we replicated those arcade graphics. When Atari came out with the original Pac-Man version, it was really dumbed down based on the available technology. So it was really clunky, and the ghosts would flutter and sometimes disappear, and everything was sort of boxy looking. And that's what Bandai, who owns Pac-Man, wanted us to replicate. So even though we have a much nicer version elsewhere in our line, the Pac-Man that's shown on the Atari 2600 console is that late 70s clunky, goofy, kind of down-rated version of Pac-Man.
See, we knew about the arcade cabinets, but I had not seen this. And now I'm looking at actually an announcement article. The DDR and the Atari, they look absolutely fantastic. I need that DDR for my again, for going back to, not only do I love me some DDR, but I gotta have my action figures play DDR.
Something to play with.
It's even got the little bar in the back for them to hold on to. This is great.
Yeah, we're really happy. Yeah, they're a lot of fun. They're both really cool products.
So I hope you guys can continue with that with like the home console idea, because like again having something like a little even if it goes back to having to throw a keychain on it because you can't have it play Nintendo 64 games, but like having a little N64 or GameCube or Nintendo or Sega Genesis. Like that would be awesome.
It's been on the it's only been on the planning board. So and when we do them, we this stuff we've got a pretty good programming team. So we've been impressed with ourselves of how how accurate we've been able to reproduce these games in small size. So just keep watching. It can happen.
So with that, that's the end of the Q&A section. Thank you to everybody who submitted questions. We hope you like the answers that you got.
Thank you.
And with that, it leads us into our final question of the interview. So, Dave, would you like to fulfill your role as this podcast's James Lipton and ask our final question?
Yes. So the final question that we ask all of our guests is, what is your favorite and or strangest piece in your collection? Now, it could be one of each, it could be both, but what is your favorite and or strangest piece in your collection?
All right, so I can't pick a favorite because it depends on the time of day of the week. There's different favorites. But I will tell you one of my strangest, and I mentioned the antique toys. So the tin wind-ups I focus on are my preference is toys that reflected the culture of those times. So as you can expect, I got some pretty strange toys. So there's actually two to come to mind that are really really odd. One of them is it's a wind-up tin toy that's a very nattily dressed gentleman with a suit and a hat sitting on a bench surrounded by palm trees, and next to him is what looks like, I guess, was at the time a trash receptacle, a trash can with a cover. And how this works is you take the lid off the trash can and you put a lit cigarette into it. Now, keep in mind, these are toys that were built for kids, so it really tells you how far we've come as a society. Put the lid back on with the lit cigarette, wind it up, and the man on the bench will begin smoking his pipes and blowing smoke out of the pipe.
Smoke
and
up,
the
Johnny.
other one is kind of a famous toy. It was made in Germany about 1900, and it's called the chimney sweep. And it's a really strange toy. It's a man in a baker suit pedaling. So he's got a bicycle and it's a wind up pedal motion. A cart, like maybe you can picture it as a kind of an old time ice cream cart that you'd see. Only it has what looks like a pretzel painted on the side of it. But hanging on the back of the cart is a man dressed in all black. He almost looks like a ninja, and he's holding a broom. And as you wind it up, the baker pedals the bicycle, pulling the cart, and the man on the back, who's supposed to be a chimney sweep, who looks like a ninja, is whacking his broom at the baker while he's pedaling. And at the same time, the baker, with his other hand, is whacking the chimney sweep with a spoon.
I had to Google that one while you were describing it, and I found it. Yeah.
How's the description? Am I pretty accurate?
100%. You could not have described that better in fewer words. You couldn't have done it. It was perfect. And yeah, that does not look like a chimney sweep. That looks like a ninja.
And why he's attacking this poor baker selling pretzels from his bicycle is I've never understood. But apparently, it was a common enough occurrence for a company to invest and manufacture a toy based on it.
And I found a picture of one that has like the original art with it. Baker and Sweet. But yeah, even the art, like, and the baker and the art's turning around like, "Hey, why are you whacking me?" Yeah, that's funny. That is a great toy. Oh, well, Alan, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on Adventures in Collecting. Before we let you go, just tell us, where can we find out the latest news about Super Impulse? Where can we find you on the interwebs, all that good stuff?
We're kind of out there all over. So we have social digital posts all the time. Follow us on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, all the usual places. You can always go to our site. We have a storefront set up on Amazon. So we're out there.
Awesome. Thank you again so much for joining us, Alan.
It was my pleasure. I really enjoyed talking to you guys. Thanks very much.
Thank you, dear listener, for hanging out with us today. Subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen, and then tell your friends to do it. Thanks also to Joe Azari, the golden voice behind our intro. Our music is Game Boy Horror by the Zombie Dandies. Find more about them both in our show notes.
Follow us on social media at AIC_podcast on Instagram and Twitter. Stop by and say hi, show us your toy hauls, and share your toy stories. Maybe we'll talk about it in a future episode.
Don't try this at home. Void where prohibited and some assembly required. Each sold separately, not a flying toy. Consult a physician if your toy run exceeds more than 4 hours.
This has been a non-productive media presentation. Executive producer Frank Hablawi. This program and many others like it on the Non-Productive Network is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Please share it, but ask before trying to change it or sell it. For more information, visit non-productive.com.